Bawakwar Tawab, good morning. Shalom Laha Alahayim, peace to the gods. Nawathan, Kal, Alaliam La, Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Racha HaKwadash. Giving all praises to Yahweh, in the name Yahweh Shai, in the name of the Holy Spirit. Double honors unto the elder apostles, the elder bishops, and the heads and elders of all the camps of Great Millstone, GMS, who do rule well. Peace, blessings, and salutations to the Bayath Dawada, the house of David, the predestined spirits of election scattered abroad, starting with the 144,000, 12,000 men, prophets of each tribe of Yasha'Allah, Israel, the princes of the power, as well as the innumerable multitude of men, women, and children, all right, scattered among the heathen. Some of them may look like the heathen pursuant to the speckled bird, all right, rehearsing the righteous acts to the best of their ability, as well as that 1/3 that in Babylon the Great amongst the innumerable multitude outside of the office of a prophet. All right, this is your brother Tazapanya with a morning meditation before the plantation in transit. Not a spiritual commentary, but I guess we could do that. Yeah, spiritual commentary. All through the spirit and power of Lord willing. I don't want to rock the Zah of Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai. Lord willing, I will rock the Zah that it's edifying. So, I don't know if brothers, the Akim, and the very few Akwath, any of them heard these rumors, so to speak. It's been going around. I've been doing my research. I've been waiting through the spirit to know when to talk about it. I don't just automatically, when I see a headline or a TikTok or Instagram reel, go and make a video. I kind of like let it simmer a little bit. I meditate on it. I filter it through the scriptures. And then if the spirit deems that is edifying through my vessel, that I'm able to, be a watchman and put it out there, then I'll put it out there. We basically have come to the conclusion that Nero is that fierce king and that cruel lord, right? In Isaiah 19, right? And we then knew about Revelation 12 and 12, that the devil's going to come down to you having great wrath. And that's not the spiritual demon Satan. That is the physical counterpart of the spiritual demon Satan, which would be your so-called Caucasian race, the so-called white people, which their biblical true nationality are the Edomites, as the Lord has lifted the veil from the nations, all right, via the prophets, revealing the wicked. Because after the wicked was pretty much revealed, then it's like all the other nations and things of that nature have came into manifestation, so to speak. So the wicked is the embodiment of the so-called white man, all right? They're the Edomites, all right? And specifically, the chief tribe of Edom, Amalek, which are your small hatters, those you wish you was us people, right? And they're not, okay? It's getting a little high here. Now, there's been talks on April. Why that date, I don't necessarily know. But one thing that is very interesting is springtime. There's always like a jump up of or ramping up of certain agendas, certain actions, things of that nature that they've been waiting to do, for years on end. And winter time isn't really, and then it goes into rituals and things of that nature. Like, for instance, March is named after the Roman god Mars, which is the god of war. And as you can see, right, with Iran and the least of the flock, the Amalekites, things of that nature. They've been pretty much pushing, whether they know it or not, prophecy, right? As the least of the flock, the Amalekites are is bringing them out. Who is Babylon in Jeremiah? I think it's 50, and then in Jeremiah 51 is Esau, or it could be vice versa. All right, so, but either way, the whole Edomite nation that is spread out primarily in the Western civilization, in NATO and the EU, right, your nations, but also in America. So they're saying that, which remember the scriptures say that Isaiah 10 and 1, woe to them that write unrighteous decrees, right? Grievousness, that was already prescribed, roughly paraphrasing. But remember, to prescribe means to write something before. So all of these laws that I was about to say he was supposed to be enacting, the insurrection law, obviously he didn't write that. It was written way before time, probably since the Civil War. I don't know the full history on that, but the point of knowing of when to enact it, when he got into his second term, could have been very very well already planned for a specific time, and then to use whatever scapegoat that they like to use, because Esau is known for that, to blame this enemy that really is minuscule to the true enemy, which is ultimately yourself. So they're saying that because of the southern border, or the illegal immigrants and migrant crisis, because everything that they're doing, from certain stimulus, Doge checks, tax refund, what else? Jobs, certain, like it's like he's pushing it all on illegal immigrants, and it's very similar. Remember, there's nothing new under the sun in Ecclesiastes, right? It's very similar to, on a low level, of Nero of old, right? Blaming Rome collapsing, societal collapse, to the Jews, or should I say the Judeans, right? Those of the location of the kingdom of Judah. And we know the majority of people that was there kept the letter of the law, and they was primarily of the tribes of Judah, Benjamin, and Levi at that time, because the northern kingdom was already in the other land, or Ozareth, which is the Americas, by that time. But how he burnt down, I forgot the exact building, but burnt down Rome himself and blamed it on the Jews as a way to basically have more power, right? And to have the people behind him to do whatever that he wants to do, which means you are in the sense of a king/dictator, right? And that how, again, why we pretty much came to the conclusion of Isaiah 19, a fierce king. Because even in another TikTok, or was it an Instagram reel, I be forgetting, they be the same things for real. This Keisha lawyer, old Keisha lawyer, was like, she just now came to the realization, you could tell she leans to the left politically, that the Constitution pretty much is null and void, and people are giving up their, or should I say, that since the Constitution is pretty much out the way, he has the power of a dictator or a king, by doing certain things that they saying that is unconstitutional. But both sides, this is how you know Revelation, what is it, 13 and 11, that I beheld the beast coming up, out of the sea, or is it out the earth, having two horns like a lamb, but speaketh as a dragon. And the point that I'm saying is that the horns representing the two power party systems that goes back to the ancient Roman Empire, the plebeians and the patricians, but are now the Republicans and the Democrats. They're still in the same animal. So they work for the same agenda. And that's why it seems like it's a lamb, like each party is wanting to be there for you, or will make your life easier here in the corporation of the United States of America, when their ultimate goal was to speak like a dragon, which was to enact and say things that are draconian, as they are being used by the international banking families, because the international banking families pays lobbyists to go lobby and pay politicians in order to write laws that benefit corporations so that they can make even more money. And the more money that they make, the easier it is to control, certain things and the people and lands and so on and so forth. So it really doesn't matter. But she was going into him at that point as a dictator, going back to Nero, while we think that this is, through the spirit, Donald Trump is the reincarnation of the ancient Roman Caesar Nero, man. And how he was looked at as, one of the worst Caesars, and how he would, terrorize Rome and obstruct his power that he had as Caesar. And we're basically seeing that now, because we believe that he's going to be the one to push the MOTB, man. So supposedly the Insurrection Act, because of illegal immigrants in the southern border, might be enacted through the news, the mainstream media, in April, with this whole spring thing and rituals and, your spring equinoxes, and, as the weather gets good, just in time for civil unrest to come into play for the summer, as hyperinflation maybe ensues on America, and these tariffs make the beast to hate the whore, and so on and so forth. So the ingredients is here. The recipe was already laid out. The ingredients was already put in the pot, and the Lord been stirring it up. All we waiting for is for it to be served. Bon appetit, And spiritually speaking, when your average Babylonian American, eats of that, it's going to be a very bitter thing to swallow, so to speak, because that's what we pretty much waiting for, when it literally affect, where you don't have to ask nobody. It all comes to, that was another thing, that was taught from the apostles, man. Because, we like to say, we in Jacob's trouble, but it's the beginning of it. As you can see that the troubles are increasing specifically for Jacob, not just the southern kingdom, but the northern kingdom. But, they would say that, that you wouldn't have to ask nobody in Jacob's trouble. You'll just know. Meaning, shit is so bad that if you know the scriptures and the Lord is dealing with you, you like, yeah, we in those times. Yep. Because the scriptures do say to measure thou the time diligently in itself. So while you in it, if you know the prophecies, the Bible, which is that measuring stick, right? Your measuring tape, right? To see where we at, how long you got left, you'll know. And this is why he said it. It said in I love 2nd Ezra chapter 9. It is the very same time. That's like saying it's the exact time. Like Jake would like to say, like, yeah, you know what time it is. You know what I mean? Like, let's say in a movie, in a gangster movie or something like that. Jake would be in some illegal gambling, poker games or something like that in a basement somewhere in any town, USA. And then the stick-up kids found out the location, and then they come down with the shiesty and a revolver, and this is 1959, and Southern Jake, they see them, they like, oh shit, and the robber like, yeah, I know what time it is, and just start walking around the table with the bag open, and everybody putting their watches. I need watches, earrings, bracelets, the ring you gave to your wife, all that. I need the money, I need the chips. Just knowing that you already like, all the senses, all the observations is pointing and showing you this is it. We getting robbed. That's how Jacob's trouble gonna be. It's gonna be like, oh, nah, we are in the midst of the great tribulation, man. All hell breaking loose. You feel me? You can't. The scriptures say, a man shall desire to go into a city and shall not be able. That's Jacob's trouble, man. Your freedoms is limited. See, as a man, right? Should I say as an Israelite, king, Lord, God, priest, the freedoms of being able to do pretty much whatever you want. And when I say whatever you want, of course I'm not talking on a wicked sense. But if you wanted to go to this land and trade or sightsee or, get you a woman from that land or whatever it may be, you was able to do so because you are sovereign in its own right. You don't need nobody to tell you that you to prove your existence or your citizenship or your registration or your slave ship to anybody else, So already now you can't leave the country without a passport. There was a point in time where they had to do that where you couldn't do it without taking the you-know-what, right? Now we're getting to the point where the real ID. If you ain't got the real ID, paid that fee, and got the star on your ID, you can't even do domestic air travel, right? Now, imagine now you in your city. You can't even go to the next city in your own state without some type of proof and things of that nature to do whatever you want. This is draconian. You don't do it, or you try to fuck the barricade and drive right through, your ass gonna get shot. National Guard, FEMA camps, the military forces in places you would have never thought of, for whatever reason. Because I've seen something else too, and that's another thing that he probably tried to do too. Remember that he was supposed to be going at the cartels. How do you deem a force outside of your country as a terror threat, right? As if you're going to invade, and this is not somebody from a different landmass. Y'all are on the same landmass. America and Mexico is divided by an imaginary line. There's no all fence that they have down there is, is small and doesn't reach from what, Baja California all the way to the Gulf of Mexico, America, whatever the fuck they want to call it now, right? So it's just showing you the pride of Esau. In Proverbs it says before pride cometh before destruction or a great fall, roughly paraphrased. So we're going to see the downfall of our enemy, which was a happy, blessed thing according to the scriptures, man. He that sees the downfall of his enemy. Talking about Esau, Edom, right? Because we have pretty much many enemies, right? But yeah, so we'll see. Me personally, I don't think nothing to that extent is going to happen next month, but I could be wrong. I just have learned in this truth, one of the fruits of the Spirit is long suffering. So I do know that we're heading to that point, but it's not going to be on our timing. It's all on the Lord's timing. So I would say through a spiritual lens, that the beginning stages to set up America for martial law, because the Constitution is already, if you want to get to a technical level, there was never a Constitution from the perspective of an Israelite. When they wrote all men shall be created equal, they was taking your wife and committing adultery and popping her in front of you or at night or whatever it may be. They was knocking your teeth out and feeding you fucking pig intestines forcibly if you didn't want to eat. They was taking your biggest, strongest buck alpha male and taking the whole slave quarters to watch this perverted Edomite to buck break and sodomize a man in front of his son, his wife, his daughter, his uncles, his grandmother, so on and so forth, to prove to listen. So, ain't no Constitution. 1776, shit was wild in America, and I'm not even Judah. You see what I'm saying? But I can empathize with Judah, because whether or not, me, I'm not gonna go too much into it, but I feel the research that I've done, me being a Benjamite, I think that my father's lineage was of the quote unquote Moorish nobility, or some of those Judeans that was in somewhat of a higher position of power, a fake pseudo higher position of power in England, and got expelled or was crypto or whatever it may be, and then settled in the island in Jamaica and had to pretty much start from scratch. But even other Benjamites, whether they came directly during that time frame from the west coast of Africa, was getting the same shit going on. Lynch, who taught the American, and I'm kind of going on a tangent right now, but Lord willing, it all come full circle. Taught the American slave master how to buck break and to do all these things, from the island of Jamaica, and all of the unruly slaves they would send to Jamaica. This is why Jamaica specifically, and then a lot of Jamaicans travel to other Caribbean islands, and it was a big, because the West Indians are the tribe of Benjamin. But how the sugar cane crop in the Caribbean was very dangerous and violent, and how to survive. I've read a couple books on it before. They would just eat that, and how they would eat it to the point where so much sugar intake, even though natural, create diabetes. Would have, I think, gout or something. Have to cut off, amputate legs, and all type of craziness, or die early from cutting down sugar cane. From the same thing that Judah was doing with cotton. Breaking their back from nightfall to nightfall. You know, Jake was doing, Benjamin was doing with sugarcane. Even early on, Gad and all that was doing, and certain of the other northern tribes were doing for gold, go in the gold mines and things of that nature in the Americas as well, man. Before they eventually was like, fuck that, we would rather die. And then they came and get them so-called West Africans. But anyway, so things is about to definitely head to an immediate turn eventually. And this is why it's constantly in the spirit, us having to be prepared for these type of times that is about to come upon the earth, man, because we know what's to come. How it's going to get there, that's the beauty of it, to keep us on our toes. If we're of the elect, Lord willing, we of the elect, and we continue to give diligence to make our calling and election sure, But there's many prophets, man, that has been wanting to see the things that we about to see. And just like Elder Apostle Gabar said, the gospel, the good news is bad news to others, So if we saying the kingdom is coming, we know that through much tribulation, we must enter into the kingdom of Yahweh Shem Yahushua, as it says in the book of Acts. So if you preaching the kingdom, you're preaching lamentations, mournings, and woe, like it says in the book of Ezekiel, literally, because it goes hand in hand. See, that's another thing that Great Millstone, I feel like, and it's ultimately the doctrine of Yahweh Shem Yahushua, but that I give double honors to that rule well, because you was never taught balance. And this goes into every facet of life, man. Until you came into this truth, you didn't understand. You was very imbalanced in all aspects, whether it be with a woman, whether it be with substances, liquor, whether it be with work, children, whatever it may be, man. And then learning that, remember, Yahweh said you should be perfect as your Father in heaven is imperfect, as your Father in heaven is perfect. Yahweh is a man of balance, is a power of balance, is a spirit of balance. All right? An unjust balance is an abomination to the Lord. So you got to understand that within your life, which things is unjust balances, man. By first knowing which is your true priorities. You see? So now that we understand that our true priority or our true occupation, our job, it says in Ecclesiastes to fear the Most High and keep His commandments. And the way we do that through understanding in these days is to stay occupied in the prophecies. So as we stay in these prophecies, all right, knowing what's to come, we fear the Most High of being on the wrong side of balance, the left-hand judgment side, all right? And that pushes us to want to be on the right-hand side of judgment, which is a glorification, a praise, a salvation, right? And we keep His commandments, and Yahweh Shah said to feed His sheep. He commanded Peter, man, 3 times, thrice. But I made it to my destination, man. I'm gonna leave it at that. I was praying heavily last night, man. uh, to the Lord, give me something to talk about. You know, it was a long day. I hate Mondays, bro. I hate Mondays, but it is what it is. And I couldn't get a video out, and I was praying, Lord, give me something to go into. And I could always go into something, man, and always do more. But Lord willing, this was edifying, man. With that, I'm going to give all praises to Yahweh, Ba'asham, Yahushai, Ba'asham, Ruchak, Kodash, Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahushai, Yahweh, Ba'asham, Yahushai, Barakatah, everybody tuning in, man. On to the next one. Shalom.